We are survivors of the war. We come back to you, our people. And we are survivors of the war. We shared to wait you back. We walk for legs now gone, or lockstep still. We gaze for other eyes now only looking inward. We listen soft for comrades locked in silence. If we have minds less spent, we share unbending. And we who still care life now share this caring memory, that others not forget the dead who have no voice but us.
Hello and welcome to another segment of Vet House Voice. Our guest today is Art Kahn. Welcome here, Art, and welcome home.
Thanks, Mike.
So thanks for coming out and visiting with us today. We'll get to talk a little bit, get to know you. A little about your military service. How did you, well, first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself and your family background, your heritage, so to speak.
My mom and dad were from Pakistan, and they immigrated here in the 1950s. And so I was born in Chico, raised in Willows in Chico, in the Northern California. And they were teachers at the university, Chico State, Butte College, and I grew up pretty much as a farm boy in Northern California, around a lot of Chico State professors and a lot of farm boys, hunting, fishing, just the standard stuff we do in Northern California, driving four-wheel drive trucks and
Kind of like a Pakistani redneck.
yeah,
so
exactly. Pakistani redneck with a lot of education.
There you go.
Right?
Speaking of education, you went to school somewhere?
I went to Chico State for college. I've went to high school in Willows, Santa Barbara, and even Pakistan for 1 year at all-boys Catholic school. So I was around through high school, off and on to different high schools.
So you went to an all-boys Catholic school in Pakistan.
Correct.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, my dad decided that growing up in Willows and Chico wasn't enough culture for us, so he wanted to expose my brother and I to a little bit of his family heritage. So he took us to Pakistan, Lahore in Punjab, and my brother and I went to an all-boys Catholic high school called St. Anthony's High School. That's pretty much where the elite of the Pakistani society send their kids. The attorneys, doctors, politicians, they send their kids to the all-boys school. And St. Anthony's a pretty famous all-boys school run by Catholic Irish fathers and nuns. And most of the kids there are Muslim kids and a few Christian kids. So it's a blend, but the girls go to St. Mary's Catholic school. And so that was my exposure to Pakistan in the 1970s, early 70s. And then back to Santa Barbara. I went to summer school there freshman year, and then back to high school in Willows. So I had quite a experience.
Sounds like it. It just seems interesting to me that for somebody that is not really familiar with Muslim culture or anything like that, thinking that you were in Pakistan going to a Christian school seems maybe somewhat out of the norm. And I'm sure a lot of people that see the show would probably think that seems kind of strange. So you come back, and I know you went to Chico State. What did you study at Chico State?
I studied international relations and geography, and I was a Middle East specialist. So I emphasized on Middle East, and I was going to go work for the CIA and the Navy intelligence when I was in college. And I got accepted to the Naval Flight Officers Program when I was a junior. So I had signed up, took all the tests, and got accepted to Pensacola to start my class at the time I was going to graduate. So that was kind of why I was going to college. Just really wanted to work for Navy intelligence, Foreign Service, or the CIA. And I decided that I'd do 6 years as an officer and then go on to work in embassies in Pakistan, embassies in the Middle East, because I understood the Muslim culture. I'm American. It was easy fit for me. I thought that would benefit the country and benefit the service that I was serving.
So how did that work out into your Navy career?
Well, it was a convoluted career I had, and it's funny how things transpire in your life. I broke my leg playing mud football in college on the practice field with cleats on, and it broke my leg like Theismann. Joe Theismann broke his leg 2 weeks earlier. I broke mine 2 weeks after that. And they put my officer candidacy on hold until I had the screws and plates removed out of my leg after 2 years. And then that delayed my entrance into Pensacola, which then put me over age at the time. So that was really disappointing. Then I interviewed with the CIA, and they came out and interviewed me here in Sacramento, and they accepted me. Said, all right, you have Middle East knowledge, you speak the language, we could use a guy like you as an analyst in Langley, and if you're willing to come out to the East Coast and live, we'd like to have you come out and work for the CIA. And I had a daughter that was 3 years old, and that was a really tough decision for me to leave her at 3 years old. I was a single father, raising a daughter, going through college. So I declined. I thought, well, I have a duty to my daughter. I have a duty to my country, and I was really felt like I wanted to serve. I was also taking ROTC, Army ROTC courses in college as well. So I knew the ROTC detachment, and Captain Moore was our lead officer commander of the ROTC unit. So I had a lot of training to get ready to do service. And I decided that the only way I can really do service is to enlist. And I enlisted in the Navy Reserve in Alameda, Naval Air Station. And I joined VA 304, an attack squadron there in Alameda. And I served my time in Alameda pretty much. We went to New Orleans once and to Fallon Naval Air Station. And I really enjoyed that time. And the Navy intelligence wanted me to work for them. And these were commitments that I just couldn't make that many commitments to the military at the time, raising a daughter. And so, yeah, that was...
So you found you were faced with the challenge of military service or family.
Yeah, and it's, going out to sea for, Westpac tours and leaving the country, and then making sure that my ex-wife was burdened with the chore of raising my daughter just didn't seem right. So I decided to just do my service the best I could in the reserves. I really enjoyed it. I loved the camaraderie. I loved the folks that were in the Navy. It's a brotherhood and a sisterhood that you can only know if you've been in the military.
Yeah.
And so...
Are you still close with anybody you served with?
I have friends and family that have all served in various branches, and I feel like they're all brothers and sisters, right? So I still have friends that I've served with, but mostly it's a lot of the kids I grew up with that went into the Navy or the Marines or Air Force. My cousin went in the Marines. So, I think the benefit was that I could relate to anybody that served and what sacrifices you have to make as someone serving the country. And I have a great empathy for families that lose a husband or a wife, and they're serving the country, doing their duty, and they're not going to get paid much.
Yeah.
It's really, you love your country, you'll die for your country. And I've always felt that way about my country. And my parents are Muslim. In this day and age, those of us that are raised by Muslim families, but born and raised here, we have a obligation to defend the country, defend the Constitution, and to be an example of what a free democracy is and what it takes to defend a free democratic society. And I know that because my family was so lucky. They left India and Pakistan in the 1907, came here, settled here. We've been here for over 100 years. And I feel that all Muslim families, all Muslim Americans, they need to serve the country, defend the Constitution, and that's what I do. That's what I believe is right. And those of us that are in the military, we understand that. And I feel like I belong to a brotherhood and sisterhood that we're all on the same page about it.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think all Americans should at some point serve to, a certain degree. I personally have never served. My family was, my grandfather came back from the South Pacific, and he saw a lot of things and just was not okay with anybody and, his kids being in the military. He was against it. Didn't talk about it, or you just knew. And so it wasn't part of my life, part of my family. But as I got older, I think that there's really something that lacks in Americans today that don't go and serve their country. There's a camaraderie, a brotherhood, a sisterhood, like you talked about, and just that knowledge that you did something for your country, to give rather than to take something, from something that has given so much to so many. It's an interesting thing when like they say, hindsight. If I only knew then what I know now. So enough about me, right?
It's okay.
So you were gonna be CIA. You were gonna be like an analyst, and none of that stuff worked out because of your choices. What exactly did you end up doing?
Well, God has funny plans for people, and I ended up working for the Auto Club of America, Auto Association, and I got to serve the public as an adjuster, a supervisor, a manager, and a vendor manager, regional manager for the Auto Club. I spent 20 years working with the driving public and providing service and being of service to the California membership of AAA. And that was a great service as well. I'm serving the country, serving the people of California, being of service to my fellow man and brothers and sisters. And that fell in line with the work that I was trying to do by going into the military. So it was somewhat seamless. I've always been a customer service person. I'm very technically proficient, and I like people. And so because I come from a multicultural, multi-religious background, going to Catholic high school, parents were Muslim, raised in California during the 60s with the peace, love, and hippie generation, rock and roll. I have a lot of different influences that you can't pigeonhole many of us in California into one box.
Right.
And now, I think what I liked about so far my career is I got to meet a lot of different people from a lot of diverse backgrounds, and I actually worked for the Auto Club, helping them develop the corporate diversity program for the employees of AAA. And that kind of fell in line with what we did in the military, because in the military we have people from all religions, all races, various backgrounds coming to work in a squadron or in a platoon or in a regiment. And so you have to make the rules fair for everybody and make people feel that they're part of the team and work as a team. And so that's what we did at Auto Club. And I found that my military experience and my opportunities I had in learning things from ROTC, from the Navy Reserve, even the studies I had in college prepared me to work with people of diverse backgrounds. And so working with the employees of AAA, a lot of them are vets, former vets. We had an instant camaraderie with veterans that came out of the military and came to the Auto Club to work as employees. And we continue to do the service for the country in our own way, working for the Auto Club and serving the general public and the membership. And I think that's a real asset to any corporation. I'm a corporate animal. The military prepared me for corporate America. I'm thankful for the training I received from the Navy and even Army ROTC, and I think that served AAA very well. And
one thing when you come out of the military, you are well trained.
Yeah, I think that the young men and women I see now coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, they are mature, confident,
Yeah.
and I believe that they deserve the attention given to them by corporate America, and I think that there's a place for them to provide some type of leadership, some type of wisdom from their experiences from the battlefield. And it's also an opportunity to reintegrate our soldiers and airmen and sailors and even Coast Guardsmen back into the normal society that we live in now that they defended. And I think we owe them a debt to bring them back. I have a godson, Daniel, who served in Afghanistan. It's not easy duty. I didn't serve overseas, but I've been overseas a lot. I've traveled a lot in the Middle East and traveled a lot in Asia and Europe. And most people that are 18, first time they overseas and they go to battle, that's their only exposure.
Yeah.
Right? So these young people, I'm very proud of them. And I think that we as a country have to support them. And that's why I joined the American Legion. I felt that that's a continuing way I can serve to help the veterans, help be still part of the community that serves. And I think service as an American, a Muslim American or a Christian American or a Jewish American, it doesn't matter, Buddhist American, we are here to defend the Constitution of the United States. And I think that politicians and people forget that we will die to defend the Constitution.
Yeah.
And that doesn't go away. When you put your hand up to swear to defend the country and defend the Constitution, that doesn't go away when we leave the military. We all remember, those of us that served, that's still an obligation we have to the end of our life, to defend the country. So I'm really strongly, feel strongly about that, and I think that we as veterans are patriots, and I think that any veteran would understand what I'm saying.
So is your godson back home now?
My godson's back home. He served a tour of duty in Afghanistan. He came back and he's on the East Coast now, married. I'm really happy for him, but he needed some, Daniel was affected by the things that he saw in Afghanistan. And because I've been to Pakistan many, many times, I went to the Pakistan-Afghan border when the Russians were in Afghanistan. I've seen a lot of things. I really relate a lot to the Afghan and Iraq veterans. I feel like I'm not alone anymore. When I was younger, I was the only one that knew about Pakistan or about the Taliban.
You were from there.
Well, yeah, and I felt kind of isolated. Now when I talk to any Afghan or Iraqi vet, we instantly have a connection. Like, oh yeah, I understand, man. I know exactly what you went through because I've been there. I understand the culture. I can talk to them about what's the difference between a Wahhabi and a Salafi Muslim. I can talk to them about what a Shia and a Sunni is. Most Americans, even in the early days, didn't know the difference between Shia and Sunni.
Yeah.
And now we know what the Sunni triangle is. Now we know what the Shia in Iran are. And so that makes my training in college and my background, it makes it more fun to talk to the vets. And I feel like I want to help serve the vets. That's what I try to do in the American Legion, is try to be there for the returning vets if I can.
That's good. So you said you served 6 years?
6 years in Navy Reserve, yeah.
Navy Reserve. And what was your MOS? Is that the correct term I'm
Yeah,
asking?
I was an aircraft mechanic, structural mechanic. I worked on the flight line. Technically, I was a plane captain. In the Navy, we have plane captains, and they're responsible for one aircraft. So my responsibility my training was to get the pilot, navigator, pilot or naval flight officer in the Navy, as we call navigators, into the plane, seatbelt them in, pull the ejection pins, make sure the plane's airworthy. I sign a card to say I've checked out the plane and that I certify that this plane is ready to be flown by the pilot and naval flight officer, and I'm responsible for the airworthiness of the plane. So that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of young people who are working, I never went on the aircraft carrier, but in Naval Air Station Alameda, you know, you have two people's lives in your hands. And the responsibility of many young people that are enlisted and serving, these are the types of responsibilities and maturity that they have when they come off station and back to civilian life. I was just making sure my pilot and my naval flight officer didn't get killed, and that plane was, that I made sure that they were in a safe plane. And you have a plane captain, a first and second mechanic to get the plane launched off. But you have to check many, many systems to make sure it's airworthy. And plus there's an ejection seat with 6 or 7 pins that you have to pull because it's armed.
Yeah.
And you sit a pilot and a naval flight officer in a seat and you pull the pins, it's a armed bomb ready to explode them through the canopy of the aircraft. So that's a huge responsibility, you know. And everybody knows, and you can get killed, you can get sucked up in the intake of an airplane, you can get run over, you can kill your pilot if you pull the ejection handle and they're sitting in the seat. Many things can go wrong, so it's always about safety and making sure that no one gets killed and no one gets hurt. And yeah, it's very rewarding, very rewarding. I loved it.
Yeah, there's a lot of young kids doing that job right now.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
A lot of 18, 19, 20-year-olds.
Kids, yeah.
Yeah, they're putting pilots and naval flight officers in the plane and shooting them off the flight deck. That's a big responsibility, and they're tired. They work 12 hours on, 12 hours off. They do watches. You know, they're young people who, when they get out of the, I think we said in the Navy, when you're if you're out in the sea, you're only making like 95 cents an hour because you work all the time.
Okay, well, appreciate you coming out today. It looks like we're running out of time, so I want to thank you for coming out and look forward to maybe talking to you again sometime soon.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.